when we hear this, it's important to know that it might mean something that's not very nice. Syntactic features, and that's word order in a sentence, roughly saying. Something like they wrap them up nicely, which is not the most important thing, but it does matter. A lot of parts, but which one is the key part here? That's important to identify. And finally, Chris's favorite, phonological features, which he's going to talk about a little later. So these are all the things which listening involves. There are a lot more, of course, but these are the most important ones. However, we all remember that our ZNO is aimed at B1 and B2 level, and we'll be testing all of those things in the exam. As you can see, we've highlighted knowledge of language, which is, roughly speaking, the biggest area that's being tested in the exam. Mainly because, like I said earlier, knowledge of situation is given as part of the task. You're going to listen to a lecture by Professor Stephen Drake, or you're going to interview some high school students, and that already activates our understanding of what's going to happen. Factual knowledge, sociocultural knowledge, and discoursive knowledge are some other things that are important, but they're not the things which are being tested. Okay? Our students don't have to know that Maladives and stray to be able to answer the question. It's just part of the text. That's why the biggest chunk we need to focus on is language. To the left, right, okay. Someone asked me to move to the left and speak up a little bit, so that's what I'm doing. Can you please tell me if that's better? Can you hear me better now? Yes. Okay. No? Better? All right. Good. I'm going to speak up now. Right. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. So, in a moment, we're going to look at how knowledge of language helps us cope with the listening tasks, and also how we can develop it. Let's have a look at one example from the test. This is a question from ZNO Task 1, and here the interviewer speaks to some students about their plans for the summer. So we're going to listen to the bit in a moment. Have a look at the three pictures now. What do you think they are? Okay, so when I think about it, to me, picture A looks like study. Picture B looks like grandma. And picture C looks like a grandma and someone else. So let's listen and let's hear what the speaker says. Can you help me with this?
Where's the platform? Yes. We may disappear for a second. Don't worry. You'll have your audio and we'll be back soon. So we're back, I think. Can you hear us?
Please type yes into the chat box. Lovely. Okay, finally people are saying yes. Good, thank you. I'm afraid Chris might have to disappear from the screen because people are saying they can't hear me. Chris will be back with you in about 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, so we've just listened to this bit. There are 3 answer choices, A, B, and C. Can you please type the option which you think is correct here? Okay. I can see several options. Okay. We're saying A, B, and C. Right? So, we're going to listen again. And what we'd like you to do is note down the keywords which help you identify the answer. All right? So, if you think it's grandma, note down grandma. If you can hear something else, note down what you have. I will disappear again, just so you can have your audio.
Share my screen.
Okay, great.
So now click on that.
So, we're back. And we had 3 options. Okay. Here I told you studying grandma and grandma and something else. And for now, it's clear that it's grandma and sister. Okay. So which option do you think is incorrect? I've seen some people type definitely not studying. Okay, so yes, studying is there, but it's not the option. It's not what the speaker will be doing. Okay. Grandma, some people have told me that grandma is correct. Yes, but it's not just grandma. Let's have a look at the script. I've highlighted the words, the keywords for you, so you can see why option C is correct. The speaker mentions the grandma, but the speaker also says my sister and I. Don't see her very often, so we'll probably do that. Okay. In this case, the grandma is correct, but it's not our full answer. Studying is something we call a distractor. It's mentioned in the text, but it's not entirely correct. It's not what we are looking for here. Right? So if we look at the strategy we use here again, let's go back. We first look at the options. We look at the pictures and the task, and we try and predict what keywords our students or we are going to hear. What things are going to help us identify the option. After that, we listen, and we mainly listen for the keywords. Let's be careful, because sometimes those will be exactly the same words as we predict. Sometimes they will be synonyms or something from the same lexical set. So after we listen, we have our ideas, and we need to eliminate the wrong options, like we did together now. Right? Just to make sure we're on the same page. Do you have any questions so far? If yes, can you please type your question into the chat box? no questions. Okay, people are saying no. Will there be pictures? Yes. In part 1, we have pictures and we have answer choices. If you look at the demo task, which is available on the task portal, you can see that part 1 is 6 questions, and the first 3 questions have pictures as answer choices. And the other 3 questions have prompts or sentence stems as answer choices. There was a question. Let me try and pull this out.
And will the pictures always correspond to the answers?
Yes. There will always be one
which matches, but on the demo task which they published, there was one, it was a picture of a tulip or a rose or something like that. So if you're someone like me who's bad with flowers, that could be a problem as well too.
Yes, which is why we say we need to look for the pictures from the same lexical set, being if it's transport, it can be a car, but it can be, a smaller car or a bigger car, something like a Jeep, right? So, moving on from here, over to Chris.
So, good to be back. So we're going to be looking at something a bit different. We're actually going to be changing tasks a bit. So we're going from task 1, where we were listening to short blocks of text, 1 paragraph each, to task 3, where students will be asked to listen to does anyone remember, what was it in task 3? Could you type it in chat if you remember? In task 3, students will be asked to listen to a presentation, a typical lecture monologue, exactly. And you're absolutely correct, whoever just sent in chat, that the audio may or may not be a native speaker. It could be a non-native speaker, which is fine. I mean, there are lots of non-native speakers who give presentations in English, so it's very realistic.
Which is also a real-life situation, because we don't always listen to native speakers. In most cases, we communicate with
non-native speakers. But what's Dasha's statistic? 6 to 1 against us? Yeah. So, because we're going to be listening to a presentation, could you just type in the chat, what was the last presentation that you watched before this one? Leadership. Critical thinking. Medicine. Got some very diverse topics here. Book. Other webinars. Cooking. Lesson plan. We've got some very interesting topics coming in. Lots of leadership, cooking, even exams, FCE. Okay, so we're also going to be listening to part of a presentation. We won't do the full task due to time constraints, really. But we're going to listen to the first part of a presentation, just the introduction. So, as we listen to the introduction, there are 2 questions that I'd like you to answer. The first is, what does the man study? He's a professor somewhere. He studies something. What is it? And the second, what is the topic of his lecture going to be? We'll disappear for a second.
There was a
question about how many times students will listen to the audio. Twice. It does repeat. Yes, which is very important because we'll be using that a bit. So, 2 questions. 1, what does he study? 2, what's the topic of the lecture? Stephen Drake. Today, I'm going to ask and hopefully answer a question that many of you never even thought of asking before. How do we look for knowledge? And what does our society need to do in terms of knowing more of the future? Well, we should be back in. All right, so we're back. Can you type your answers in the chat? What does he study, and what's the topic of the lecture going to be? Technology.
Technology again? Technology, yes. How technologies are affecting our lives.
Yeah. That's precisely it, how technology affects our lives. Well, we're going to be listening to this a bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the question. Because in ZNO Task 3 for listening, our students don't just have to listen to a presentation, they've got to answer some questions about it. In Task 3, these are going to be multiple choice questions. So here, we can see the question and the possible choices. My question for us is, can we read the question and just the question for now, not worrying about the answers, and what kind of information are we listening for? Are we listening for a fact? Are we listening for a date? Are we listening for an opinion? What are we listening for? I see lots of people saying an opinion. Okay, absolutely correct. So some phrases which could set off opinions. We got think. I think that's probably a good one.
In my opinion.
In my opinion, yeah, the classic.
Yeah.
To me, I guess. Okay. So there are lots of phrases that we can use to help us kind of guess what the opinion might be. So we're going to listen again, just to the introduction for now. And as we listen this time, I would like you to write down any key words you hear. That is, any key words about his opinion, or that you think, possibly maybe, about his opinion. Just write any key words that you hear that help you answer about his opinion. Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Drake, and I'm a researcher who focuses on how technology is affecting our modern lives compared to what came before. Today, I'm going to ask, and hopefully answer, a question that many of you never even thought of asking before. How do we look for knowledge? And what does our society need to do in terms of knowing more of the future? Well, all right, so we're back, and from our notes, what's our clever answer that we've got? So remember, with our keywords, we're looking for an opinion, not just a fact. So we see lots of people saying C. Why do we think it's C? What is our key word that hopefully, future, hopefully. Okay. So we're going to have a look at what he actually said.
You're going to show us the script.
Yeah, I'm going to show you just the beginning of the script because we still don't know what the answer is. Have a look at the script. Check your ideas. So, what do we think the answer is looking at the script? If everyone already saying C. Okay. So, and absolutely, the answer to this task is C. Why? Well, some people have written this, a question that many of you have never even thought of asking before. So, not quite what we predicted, but this is still a way that we can talk about opinions, talking about possibility. So, my question for us now is this, because we don't just have the right answer. We've got two other answers. My question for us first is, one of our possibilities is something which was mentioned in the text, but doesn't answer the question. Which one of our choices fits that description? Something mentioned in the text, but doesn't answer the question. Yeah, absolutely. We've just had someone say it. About technology in our lives. He does say, I'm a researcher who focuses on technology.
Not just technology.
Well, not just technology, but technology in our modern lives.
Compared to what came before.
Yeah. So this would be one of the trickier answers then, because he does say it, but it's not quite what we need. It doesn't answer the question. We've also got, perhaps an easier one, something which is not true or is not mentioned according to the text. Which answer fits that description?
I think there is only one.
Yeah, there's only one left. It's B. Yeah, but why?
It's a question.
Yeah.
It's a good question, but nobody says it must be answered.
Yeah, no one says that we have to answer this. He just says, I'm going to ask this question and answer it. So, hopefully. So, we've got different, exactly, hopefully is not must. So, we've got two different kinds of distractors that we're dealing with ultimately. Things which are mentioned and things which are wrong. And then we've got, of course, the correct answer. So, what have we done so far? Well, the first thing I asked you to do was to take notes about the key words that you heard. Kate also asked you to do this. And we're focusing on key words that we hear, not something that we don't, not the phrases that are difficult. So if you're like me and someone who gets distracted easily, I find that doing something keeps me engaged and keeps me focused on the text. Moreover, we're focusing our attention on what we hear, not what we don't, which is going to allow us to get more information out of the text rather than worrying about some sentence that maybe wasn't clear. And because we're doing this, we're dealing less with the question and answering it now and more with the text. We're listening, we're taking notes, we're recording our ideas, which lets us reference them later when we are actually doing the task. That's why note-taking itself is such an important skill that we have to develop.
Here it's important to say, and that links back to what I did, we're making notes of what we hear, which will not necessarily be the correct answer.
Right.
That's just what we hear.
Right. Yeah, we're just recording our ideas and what we've heard. which brings us to the second point of what actually are we hearing and what's a bit harder to hear, because that's also important. Which brings us to the second tip, prioritize. So focusing on the key words and words that are easy to hear, well, which words are these? These are typically the words which carry the important information. That is, important words in a sentence take stress, and very, very often they carry intonation. This makes them much, much, much easier to hear than all of these grammar words, all of these do's and haves and shoulds that take weak forms.
Yeah, that's Chris's favorite phonology.
On the other hand, it's also been shown that focusing on understanding every single word, because there have been experiments where students were asked to try to understand every single word that they heard, and these students scored lower on the exam than the students who were just focusing on what they could hear. So this does actually have a measurable effect on at least exam scores, probably on listening comprehension, probably.
Yeah.
And it's one that my students have found helps them a lot. So we're going to move on a little bit. We're going to try one more because we're going to practice this a bit. Actually, let's just do one instead of two for the sake of time. So we're going to only look at number 2. Forget about number 3. You can't see it. It doesn't exist. If you do see it, you're crazy. So only number 2. Have a look at number 2. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to have a look and think what kind of information we're listening for. All right, so now we're going to listen just to, and people saying facts, absolutely. We're going to listen just to the next paragraph of the text. Listen, note your keywords, and select what you feel is the best answer.
Needing to know something isn't the new idea. Knowing more in the future. Well, needing to know something isn't the new idea. In fact, people have been asking questions for as long as we've had language. They've asked their wise women, their tribal chiefs, their priests, their rabbis, their librarians, and in the past, this has been enough for everyone. People were able to get the answers they needed, whether the answer was spiritual or based in facts, which they could look up from someone around them. However, in modern times,
My discourse markers to figure out. Literally walking the talk right now. All right, so we can see our choices again. And what do we feel is the best choice from number 2? We're getting conflicting answers. We've got A and C. Let's see why. Let's have a look at C. And it says they wanted to learn more about spirits and religion. So that would be asking what kind of people? Probably.
There was something about
Leaders, priests, rabbis. Did they ask only priests and rabbis, though? Because I heard, like, chiefs and leaders. So could we say that C is something which was mentioned, but doesn't fully answer the question? In that case, has to be A. Yeah, so absolutely. So that's putting the strategy into practice. So let's imagine then that we have gone through this task, we've done everything, And our students have done reasonably well. But we still need to do something which can help them even more. And in this case, we're listening to a long stretch of speech, a very long stretch of speech, 2.5 minutes for this recording. And there are some things that help us really sort out long stretches of speech. You're going to see an example of one on the next slide. Well, not yet on the next slide. I've forgotten my own presentation. Before we look at that, summarizing our plans. First, using our questions to plan our listening, taking our own notes for the task, and using our notes to answer the questions. Our plan for success for this. Now, onward to the language. So we've got some bits of language that help us sort out long stretches of talking. You can see one example of this here. In fact, people have been asking questions for as long as we've had language. My question here is, what's the job of in fact? What's it doing for us? Could it be, it's linking, absolutely linking. It's attracting attention to what's coming next. Yeah, could we say it's maybe expanding, giving more information and details about something which was mentioned previously? So we've got, when we listen, discourse markers or linkers which help us understand long stretches of text. Now, it's important to note here, because we said earlier, discourse marker and discourse isn't explicitly tested here. No. But because this is such a long stretch of speech, being familiar with them actually would help students processing.
And also, I think we would just, lose track of what's going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in this case, it's not something that's directly tested, but it's something that helps our students keep their ideas straight. Mm-hmm. So we're going to look at a few more. You can see them here. Could you just, we're going to sort these into the best groups. Let's look at, to put it simply first, which group could we put this into? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it's a summarizing phrase, like in conclusion, to put it simply. Okay. Yeah. However, probably. Yeah, absolutely contrast. And we've already talked about, in fact, giving us additional information. Now, in a real lesson, would you just give students this list of words, or would you give them something else? Yeah, absolutely, and that makes it really difficult. Mm-hmm. So what we would do in a real lesson would be to give students the transcripts and allow them to use the transcripts where they can see the idea before and the idea after to sort them into the best groups. I'm letting them use the text to help them. Sentences don't give enough context here. Because if we go back a slide, I've done something which made this very difficult. I didn't give you the sentence before.
Which is why I said clarifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's impossible to have a bridge with only one side. And linkers are, or discourse markers really are bridges for our ideas. So they need to have both parts, and they need to have both sides. So after we've given them the tape script, they've sorted, they've done a good job, we tell them they did a good job. They probably need to practice this a little bit. So we talked about having ideas with two sides, or with bridges for ideas. Well, here we've got the first part of an idea. For example, another possibility is using the end of the website's name to help you. Websites ending in .org or .gov are more reliable than .com. However, I would ask my students here to finish the sentence in a way that makes sense. It's logical. It doesn't have to be grammatically perfect. We're looking for the logic here, not necessarily grammatical perfection. For example, mine would be, however, websites ending in .com are very often reliable.
Or we could say, however, websites ending in .org can still be bought domain names. Absolutely.
Right. So anything which shows the idea. And if we want to kind of extend this and get a bit more challenge, then what we can do is this. Yeah, absolutely. So if we want to extend this, what I usually do is after we check the task, I tell my students, go back to the first sentence, choose a different linker that we studied, to be any of them, and finish their sentence with the different linker. After they've done this, they turn to their partner and they share the sentences, but without the linker. Their partner has to guess. So it's a bit more cognitively challenging. So we'll try one together. Another possibility is using the end of the website's name to help you. Websites ending in .org or .gov are more reliable than .com. Studies show that 80% of .com websites are not reliable. Something better, because we're kind of building on the idea. Oh, I see people saying in the chat, yeah, better, in fact, yeah, or nevertheless, if that's what we studied. So we've given our students the chance to play with these a little bit, and so the last thing we're going to do is give them the chance, and you can see a task here, which we've included in the book, where they get to practice using them to give their own presentations. Here they would work in small groups, giving a short lecture on using the internet on the same topic, which I think is something that most teenagers are very good at. So they work on their own, they take a few minutes, prepare their notes, prepare what linkers they want to use. Their partners listen to their presentation and prepare to ask questions. And this is still listening practice. This is live listening, actually. It's not as difficult, maybe, for them as authentic listening, but it is still listening practice where they can hear the discourse markers being used, hopefully appropriately. Hopefully. If not, we deal with that later. I also like to give a listening task here where the listeners jot down any discourse markers they hear, training them to listen for the discourse markers. And the main idea here is that giving students the chance to use the language to make a presentation of their own should deepen their understanding of how these are used in a real talk, so that they can use them more equally or more adequately when they're listening. That is, their speaking is supporting their listening. So, which is the last tip, we need to focus on language which helps us listen. This could be features of discourse, as we said before, phonology, grammar, lexes, whatever language helps us understand the text. And we really need to focus on the spoken form of it, not just the written form. And we can do this with all of our texts, maximizing our in-class time. What's your word for it? Interleaving. Yeah. Exploiting our texts for language work. So in sum, to kind of wrap things up today, we need to raise our students' awareness not only of how they listen, but of what can help them listening. This can include strategies like Kate, predict, listen, eliminate, or taking notes, or planning what they'll listen for. And this can also include language, our grammar lexes, our discourse, and our phonology. And just to kind of put all of this in a bigger scheme, this is what we generally refer to when we make students aware of how their brain works, of how processes work, we're talking about something called metacognition.
Knowing how to know.
Yeah, knowing how to know. So I believe that's got us talked about. So this is the bibliography. This webinar will be accessible to people who want it. We'd be happy to take any questions.
If you have any questions, please type them into the chat box and we'll answer them now.
Listening 28.
If you're asking about the exam, we don't know because we do not write the exam. The book is ready. Certificate? Yes. I think there will be. They have to fill out the form after the webinar. Okay.
Yes.
After the webinar, there will be a form which you have to fill in, and that way you will get the certificate in a week.
They said there was just a question. Yeah, are the listening tasks B1 and B2? The answer is both.
Yes.
There will be easier listening tasks and much more challenging listening tasks. And I think we've also written Exam Booster to kind of meet that as well. There are very challenging texts. And there are less challenging texts as well that for the different parts of the exam.
Yeah.
Just listening online.
TED
TED Talks, definitely. Especially for presentations, considering that presentations are a genre.
Yeah.
As well, looking at news interviews, things like Good Morning Britain, there was just a question. Did you see it?
I think we can get it in the chat.
From ordinary school.
They're taking a B1 level exam, and that means they're only working on the easier tasks. Okay, we will now stop sharing the screen because we need to find the question which we missed.
Oh, in the chat.
Okay, we can get it in the chat.
Yeah.
Websites where you can find audio materials for ZNO. I don't think we know of any.
Nothing specifically for ZNO, no.
No. There is a sample which is published on Test Portal, but I think that's about it. If you want to see sample tasks and how to train your students for listening, you can get our book, and for that you need to contact your local representative of a linguist company in your area, and they will advise. I'll just look for a question which we missed. Where can we find examples of listening and the level of difficulty of the text?
I don't think there are, because the thing is, it's such a new task that people are still kind of doing everything. Because, for example, we had to, in preparation for the book, we actually had to prepare all the listening, not just our voices. We had to go and find people to record it as well. But we had to prepare everything. So there's not much.
Does our book already have a listening part? I think it's being published right now.
Literally right now.
It's the listening section for our book. So no sound now. Okay. We've written. No, it should be fine. We've written a listening section to our book. So if you contact your local representative of the linguist company, you'll find out about how to get it.
All right, I don't see any more questions. How long is ZNO listening? In terms of time, I think it was somewhere around half an hour.
That's a difficult question.
Yeah.
Around 30 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, because I transcribed the original when we started writing the listening section, but that was about 4 months ago. So 30 minutes, yeah.
do we have any other questions?
The webinar will be made available. Yes.
I think if there are any other questions, you can send them to the Linguist Company on Facebook or by email, and we will be happy to answer them. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention, for finding the time, and thank you for your thanks.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we just hope that this was helpful for all of you.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Stop sharing video.